Okay, thank you for allowing me to come for this conference to share some of my experience working in Russia and the east of Europe, and some of the cases we work in Latin America and some other places in the world. My name is Alvaro Soto. I'm the lab director from Asoto Technology Group in Colombia, USA. And my goal for today, my objective, is to share some of our personal experience providing on processing cases in the south of China and the east of Europe mostly. I hope to share with some of the people that is working or interested in digital forensics, law enforcement, or even geeks. My goal for this conference is share our experience working beyond the traditional forensic tools, not only in case or FTK. Usually when you are working in real cases, in tactical operations, you will find a lot of challenge, and I will share some of that we found. Let's talk first about the evolution of digital forensics. In the beginning, we start to work with personal computers, we advanced to networks, we moved to smartphones, we started growing to the Internet of Things and a lot of digital appliances, and finally we grow to the cloud. What's next? Let's see. During the last days, I see we can saw how the news related to corporate espionage and the Chinese case against USA for some of the international economic espionage. I think that some of the critical viewpoints for the people that work for companies today, and I'm talking about cyber warfare. Many of the companies believe that there are free or cyber warfare, or believe that there are free or interception for foreign governments. You saw the situation, and even is not new, with the Chinese government and other governments intercepting some of the backbones, some of the servers. If some people remember here the Aurora operations against Google, or the Mandiant report related to the malware and the attacking to some of the activists. This is really not new. This happened a lot of years ago in many governments. If some people remember here the information leak from AT&T, the backbone, the OCX3 backbone in San Francisco, but even with some of photos of pictures taken by some former employee of AT&T showing some of the illegal interception. This is really not new in the market. The thing that is new is the information is leaked. The thing that is new is all the techniques and technology used for that is mostly leaked, and we are going to see a lot of new things and a challenge during the next months and years. I'm absolutely sure about. Then some of my points is try to do some kind of awareness for those here to this working in security research or working for secure or maybe more safe the companies that are working for, including the safe of the data and something. Not only against the traditional attacks, against some criminal bands, but because now the challenge is against governments. We are talking about more bigger challenge. We are going to see more about that. Officially speaking, the last weeks is the first time that inside a US court, China was indictment related to the spy cases, related to economic espionage. This is really a milestone. This don't happen before. What is going to see later, we don't know. This is the official FBI search for these people. I'm absolutely sure they're not going to go to US to confront the church. But this situation is going to be more repeatable in the future. If somebody here remember the case of Target, it's a big retail store in US, 40 million credit cards stolen, is going to Russia, to Odessa, to be more specifically, to Odessa in Ukraine. This is growing and growing more. Some of the cases in Colombia, the president email spy was intercepted by some competitor in the presidential elections. And just days ago, the 19 countries, the FBI rent a backdoor decryptware, $40 for a full equipment, GTO malware. It's really, really interesting. And some of the statistics I want to share with you related to the corporate situation by Verizon, talking related to the data breach, right, in all the fields of the corporate. Many of the companies believe that this is mostly financial. As my colleagues explained yesterday in the other presentations, they talk about the utility companies, the SCADA systems, and the Internet of Things. This is growing more and more and more and more. We are going to see amazing situations during the next couple of years. This is a free report. It's really interesting to show to the CIO to improve the budget for the IT. And this is a general landscape about the financial, manufacturing, professional service retail. Nothing is free of hacking or data breaches. It's not only about government. It's not only about financial institutions. This is growing more related to general companies. Something that I really want to make the awareness for the people, this is executive responsibility. I know that most of the people here is technical, but the interesting stuff is, for example, for Target, they spend more than $19 million trying to fixing the problem of the data breach. And I am absolutely sure they will not take this money from the payroll of the IT director. Finally, is the shareholders or the stakeholders, this money is going to be out from the company. Then something that I want to aware for the people is try to get involved more with the executive area of the company, with the people that take the decisions, to show more that they are finally going to pay the fines and the penalties for that. Related, I'm going now to the technical stuff. In the life, usually you have expectations. Some people, when are children's, and especially boys, request this kind of remote control cars for the father or mother for Christmas or birthday. Usually they expect this, but they get that. For women, in a long-term relationship, after maybe short-term, I don't know, 8 years, they expect something like this, but finally they get something like that. Really happened. Of course, for the graduation, when we leave the college or the university, we expect something from the family. Sometimes the budget is not affordable. And from the technical viewpoint, sometimes somebody tells you, hey, I need you to write for me some very simple code. And you expect something like this, but finally you get something like that. In forensics, is exactly the same situation. Somebody calls us to the laboratory and tells us, okay, we have a CPU, a computer, do you do some kind of forensics? Okay, we have a simple tower. It's okay, no problem. Motherboard, hard drive, nothing more. But then, when we was in Russia, we start to receive toys like this. This is the gauzer inside the computer with contacts in every corner of the computer. When we open the cap of the computer, he destroys completely the hard drive in 0.1 second. Totally unusable, the surface of the hard drive. Absolutely unrecoverable. They have the gel battery is 5 years maintenance-free, and you can purchase this in Moscow from 250 euros or something like that. We saw the same devices in Mexico, we saw the same devices in Central America and in other places, and it's more harder to detect. The interesting stuff is they have some mobile stations. This device works with a GSM phone, and then you can send an SMS and destroy the hard drive remotely. And they have like some kind of car remote alarm system, and they can destroy the hard drive from 300 meters away. In case a police search warrant, they not enough time between crash the door and go inside the place. Then this is the kind of really interesting tools. Of course, everybody remembers Zeus, the very old Trojans that is improving every day. SPI and something like that. And then this is the kind of real challenge that we are going to see. It's most for the hardware side, is beyond the standard tools. This edition is for servers. We found some servers in the east of Europe, and it's really interesting because this device can destroy up to 24 hard drives at the same time in 0.1 second. It's a degaussing process. They destroy completely the surface of the hard drive, totally unrecoverable. It's really interesting devices. Again, in networks, sometimes you expect this. Somebody tell you, oh, you need to come to the network to make a forensic image. Where? And related to physical, the same situation. Sometimes the people tell, I have a USB for recover, but we receive this kind of stuff in the laboratory. No any teddy bear was hard for this photo. Okay, now, so what's the challenge? What is the new lab tools? For example, for try to detect this kind of devices for self-destroy the hard drives, we start to use radio frequency detectors inside the computers. If everybody do here, we're driving, remember Wi-Fi tools or Wi-Fi spy, it's very usable for these cases. You can detect frequencies going inside out from the case of the computer. Sometimes you need to replace the platters of the hard drive. Then even now, you can Google it. You can find these kind of tools. Some kind of myths related to extract the platters inside a clean room environment. Sometimes where you're doing tactical operations, so you have not the budget to purchase a clean room, you can prepare at least a workbench, a clean workbench. You can buy in China for, I don't know, $1,000, just to have a laminar flow of air to allow to keep clean the area where you are opening a hard drive. Then you don't need exactly to purchase a full clean room to do these kind of operations. And every day, bad hard drives, bad digital devices is more complex and more easy to find broken. And then deploy or create a forensic laboratory in these conditions actually is really not hard. A platter exchange tool you can find in the market for 500 euros or something, or maybe less. For this case, for example, this is a SIM card. We work in some cases where bombs is used by terrorists, and usually we get only pieces of the hardware. You can see here, this is actually the SIM card, and one of the contacts is removed, but all the information is in the SIM card. Then with X-rays and a good microscope, usually you can do microsurgeries for recover data, is one option. For the NAND recovery, you can do this kind of, you can use this kind of NAND readers. For the people that work here in corporate environments and use, for example, RAID systems, or maybe anybody that have a NAS in your house, recover as a NAND chip from a USB memory or something like that is exactly as recovered a RAID. It's not very different. So you can use and recycle some of your knowledge doing RAID recovery to use chip recovery. This is a really interesting password recovery tool that I saw in China. I took the picture. The Chinese Counterterrorist Bureau. It's interesting. I will show later. For password recovery, for those that are doing password recovery, usually many of the laboratories try to get budget to purchase rainbow tables. Usually rainbow tables in the market is costing around 10,000 euros, something like that. Not too much people know that you can find free rainbow tables and you can download all the hashes, not only for aircraft. You can do too for password recovery, for office files and many of the LAN hash or when you're doing some kind of forensic stuff. And then this kind of resources is free for everyone. And then it's just one of my recommendations. In other cases, you can do manual password recovery. This is the chair. I remember this chair when I took this photo in China. I was in Beijing. They told me that it's in aluminum for easy cleaning. And they have the mobile edition and the fixed edition. I think they need to improve the marketing given the DVD of the Hostel movie. And of course, you can add some additional tools for improve the speed of the password recovery. And you can start learn younger. Okay, now, so what's the problem? If we have this kind of situations, what is the problem right now in digital forensics? Is really a standard process? Usually for the people that work in chain of custody or do chain of custody in their corporations or for law enforcement, usually you just take the bag, put the things, bring to the laboratory, and everybody fine. No. Right now you need to start to deal with a lot of different processes, like for example mobile phones. Just switching on the phone, the data is moving inside the phone. If you take a SSD disk, a solid state disk, it's exactly the same situation. Is the controller of the hard drive is moving data inside the chips, and you can't do anything unless you remove chip by chip and try to do the manual recovery for every on the NAND, right? Then this change totally the landscape of digital forensics. Every single book that we know about digital forensics changed right now. It's just not possible to follow the previous protocols that we have related to discover or download information or recover information from digital forensics. So we have a lot of challenges about that. One of my recommendations, in my personal opinion, is ISO 17025. That is one of the standards to work in forensic laboratories. I really, really recommend for the people that is working seriously for digital forensics, because it really can help you to do scientific process and prove scientific process in the forensic laboratory. Many of the laboratories in digital forensics that you can see worldwide usually is certified in ISO 9000. But really ISO 9000 don't check the scientific process, and this is one of my recommendations for the laboratory information management system. So what is the approach for this kind of forensic procedures? So, usually when I go to provide some kind of training of consulting in forensic laboratories, we saw more the technical side. We don't saw working hard in the administrative process or the legal process or even in the integration between different countries. Some of the challenges that we have is sometimes is when we found somebody hacked, for example, from Brazil or from Russia or from Ukraine or from Bulgaria, and then try to know the channels to do the proper way, to do the proper indictments or the search warrant is really, really important. Keep ahead of the curve in these kind of situations. Now, actually, the situation that we have in digital forensics is almost impossible that one single guy can work in all the technology in the forensic laboratories. We saw right now the only way is take people and specialize in different paths, like operating systems, network operating systems, mobile phones or smartphones, including the Chinese ones, because now is the new challenge. Not all the tools can read Chinese phones, and many of the phones used by the crime is in Chinese phones, is just generic phones that can be read by the standard tools. For the people that know about hacking or removing the restrictions on mobile phones, usually they purchase some kind of black boxes, and actually this is the only way to do some kind of recovery of these phones. The interesting of this stuff is you use this kind of black boxes to remove the restrictions of the phones and can read the data from the phones. In some countries actually are illegal. But when you go to the police, you go to the forensic departments, or you go to some corporations, you found the boxes because it's the only way to read data from such kind of phones. Reverse engineering is growing more and more at the binary level for malware analysis, for protocol analysis, is growing a lot, including, of course, as my colleagues say yesterday, all the application servers is growing. It's a trend that is growing more and more. And for the forensic laboratory tools, for example, like firmware analysis and repair, this is something very interesting. Not too much people know that the hard drives include their own operating systems in the plates of the hard drive. In almost all the computer engineering books, usually hard drive start by sector 0, but this is not totally true. The factory level include negative sectors, -0, -1, usually until -30, something like that. They include the operating system from the factory. And it's interesting, somebody that have experience listening a knocking hard drive believe usually, oh, the heads die, or maybe the motor stop, or maybe the PCB, the printed circuit board die. No, Sometimes exactly happen in Windows, the operating system died. And you just need to go and repair some of the modules of the operating system, and the hard drive, voila, start to work again. The interesting thing about the operating system at factory level, and I want to show you here something. This is actually, I take remote control of one of the labs. This is one of the tools that we use for firmware recovery access. Actually, in this moment, we access that this is a Seagate hard drive, and the hard drive is talking through a communication port, through a COM port. And then this is something interesting. Not too much people know that the pins in some of the hard drives actually is the communication way. So I can send commands, factory commands, or standard ATA commands to the hard drive to get information, or even to delete the password, the factory password. Many of the laptops, for the people that use the laptop and go to the BIOS and set up the password in the BIOS, this password, you know that is not for software. It's included in the firmware of the hard drive. Sometimes we receive this kind of hard drives, and the people don't know how to remove the password. And then, something interesting with this kind of tools. Number one, we can access to special zones in the hard drives. We can modify information. We can modify the behavior of the hard drive. We can do the recovery of the hard drive, and including do something interesting like this. Actually, this is a hard drive with 8 heads. And we're doing just a recovery of something there. And the interesting of this stuff is some of the heads is failing. We have some failures in the heads. And then something that I can do doing manipulation of the firmware, the factory firmware. Hold a second, please. Something that I can do doing the manipulation of the firmware of the hard drive is actually I can do this. Actually, I can switch off electrically the head of the hard drive, so I can read the surfaces of a specific size of the hard drive. What is the advantage of this? If I have a hard drive and only one surface is broken, I can read all the other surfaces of the hard drive. This is the good news when you're doing recovery of forensics. The bad news that we saw these kind of cases in Shanghai is exists something called black box hard drives. You can purchase in the south of China between thousands and 3,000 euros a box. Then they take a hard drive from maybe 500 gigabits, they remove the label, they put a label of 250 gigabits, and they switch off electrically one of the heads. I can do with a specific software, I can access the system area of the manufacturer. So when I go to the place to stolen information or move information between borders to avoid to taking risk, because if I am using encryption, I am dressing a red flag to, hey, catch me, I'm a suspicious guy. So if I don't want to have any kind of suspicious or awake any kind of suspicious crossing the border, it's simple. I just hide information in one of the surfaces of the hard drive. If somebody take my hard drive and make a forensic image, it's only going to strike the 250 gigabytes from the 500 gigabytes hard drive. It's really, really interesting. My only recommendation is if you go to China to purchase these kind of devices, please don't use your camcorder. I do that, and it's not a good idea. I need to run 3 days outside Shanghai to avoid some kind of problems because they believe that I'm going to bring them to the police or something like that. It's not nice. So this kind of tools is used to do digital forensic recovery, advanced forensic recovery, but the problem is you can use these two from the black side is to hide information in the system area or in surfaces of the hard drive. So, for example, you can see here bad sectors, and I can see that the head tree, actually, the head tree, if you can read, I think, maybe. The head tree is the head with the problems. So what I can do, I just only switch off the heads tree, and I can copy all the other head and surfaces. And finally, when I'm ready to work with this surface, I try to recover what is possible. If not, I just do a head exchange. Simple. This is the kind of challenge that you're going to confront. It's the kind of challenge that you're going to see. But the tools is ready and available. And as I told you, something to research, for example, specifically to the segregated cases, is if you want to play, you just need to connect to the COM port of the computer, and you can connect directly to your hard drive, and you can talk directly to the hard drive. It's really, really interesting, the factory commands and the behavior, how you can change the behavior of the hard drive. Okay. Then this is related to the firmware analysis and repair, right? Of course, we have another challenge like mobile phones, is where to pack the mobile phones. If I have 100 phones, or even one only, or one single phone, and I want to avoid the self-destruction of the phone through the SMS, for example, if you catch in your company or in an operation a mobile phone and you want to avoid the people send an SMS to destroy the phone, you need to use again Faraday cage. For those who are electrical engineers or something like that and remember this very, very basic concept about the copper cage, again, is working here. It's the best way. Some people, some of my colleagues use active GSM blockers. But something that happens usually with the active GSM blockers, when you plug to the electricity and block all the 4 bands of GSM, is sometimes light go out. It's a blackout, and then usually they turn on the tool, access the SMS, and delete and wipe completely the phone. Really happen. I have a lot of cases in this. What is the advantage of a Faraday cage? It's passive. You don't need batteries or electricity to operate. You just need copper, cage, and it's all. Simple solutions for complex problems. The NAND readers, as these kind of devices, allow you to read one by one, chip by chip. For example, if you have a USB. The challenge when you're doing NAND recovery is actually does not exist any kind of standard algorithm for stored information in the NAND chips. Then companies like Sony, Samsung, Siemens everyone uses own algorithms to store the information on the chips. So you need to drink a lot of coffee and Red Bull when you are trying to do some kind of reverse engineering to recover that. The good news is you can do it. The bad news is your invoices for coffee and Red Bull will grow more because every month they are releasing new chips and new NAND readers about that. Spectrum analyzers, as I recommended, sometimes, as I told you, if you get a black box or use a tower computer and you have no idea if something is inside, please run the YSPI first or run any spectrum analyzers. You can find even cheaper spectrum analyzers in eBay or something like that. Remember, actually, we saw that the Gausser, only the Gausser to destroy the hard drive, but if somebody have the nice idea to put C4 explosive close to the stuff, I think it's not good to bring this kind of stuff to the laboratory, right? And absolutely sure we're going to see these kind of situations in the future. Mobile multiplexers, for those to work in very old networks, maybe ISDN, when we have a lot of small channels of 64 kilobits and we need to put all together to have one single channel, again, multiplexers is working for mobile broadband. Sometimes when we are doing some kind of tactical operations or even working for some corporations that we can use, for example, the broadband of the company, and we need to use external network, we can plug 4 or 5 GSM modems and act like one. You can find a lot of tools right now to do mobile multiplexers. Even if you are using 4G or 3G or LTE or UMTS, sometimes the broadband is just not enough to send information. Then mobile multiplexer is a very useful tool if you are looking for transfer high-speed information in mobile networks. Sandboxes, of course, for those that are doing reverse engineering, I think that is like the first aid kit. But now for the people that is working for forensic laboratories, that is more, the habit is more related to work with dead evidence. This means I take the hard drive, I make the forensic image, and it's all. And I work in the dead evidence. But all the new viruses or the new malware that only start with the computer boot, the only way is just start the evidence to see the behavior at the protocol level at the kernel level and at the memory level. Is no other way to do that. Then, so the people is working with forensics, please see sandboxing. Some of the people is using VMware. Yes, it's useful. Or use virtual machines. But you can see the full behavior behind that. So sandboxing is an extraordinary good tool to try to do some kind of reverse engineering or behavior behind physical evidence in the cases that I'm working for. The strong single sign-on authentication, I just recommend it here because in my experience, we saw, especially in some cases in Latin America, we saw how some of the evidence in forensic laboratories was taken by some of the forensic analysts and was sold to the press. And you can imagine the kind of scandals and how these make a lot of noise for the forensic case. So please use authentication. Please encrypt the hard drives of the forensic workstations because usually people is copying data from there. One of the operations that we have in some country in Latin America, they provide some evidence, some criminal group, and the interesting stuff is the evidence include a virus. They infect the full laboratory and start to copy all the data from the laboratory to know which cases they are working for. So the interesting is the computer have no password, they have no any kind of protection, so they can access anytime because the computer is in a bunker, actually it's in a physical bunker, but they forget the internet. Yes, I know. People say, okay, why connect a forensic lab to the internet? Simple, because you can't activate the keys, the license keys without internet. And because usually you need to update the antivirus. And usually most of the law enforcement don't want to bring a USB with all the updates in a thumb drive to do that. Then it's more simple just to plug the laboratory. Yes, happened. I know that this is against all the recommendations, but I am trying to talk here about the real case scenarios. I'm not talking about how look nice in a book of policies or politics related to forensic lab. And then many of the problems that we saw in the forensic laboratory is that. Even one interesting case, like 2 years ago, I think so, I was called in emergency, I was in Ukraine. I need to travel as soon as possible for a very, very special case in another country because the full laboratory is frozen. Nothing is working. They have full servers doing decryption, full decryption 24/7, and it's stopped. They have all the workstations stopping, and they have no idea what is going on. Finally, when we go to see the workstations, the interesting is we found Age of Empires, Piracy Edition, in one of the workstations. When we asked for, one of the guys that work in the night said that he's very bored and he have no idea what to do. They have no internet, and then he bring a piracy DVD, and the thing that do the DVD is spread the virus in all the forensic laboratory and stop every single process. The interesting of this situation is when you are doing password decryption with law enforcement rainbow tables or something like that, if you stop the process, usually you need to start again. Not all the tools can resume wherever they go. And they contaminate everything. So process that is working 7 months breaking passwords, they need to start over again. The guy was sent to the most far away part of the country. You can imagine, I can't reveal that, but believe me, he's not exactly happy. But really happened. This is the kind of situation that really happened. For me, it's sometimes sounds like a joke, because you believe, no, this is serious stuff. This is serious that the people is installing games in a forensic lab? Yes, it's serious. After one person is 12 hours in front of a computer, just looking the progress bar, become bored. Especially when it's 1%, and 3 hours later, 2%, and 3 hours later, 3%, sometimes 2.5%. is awful. Data mining. Okay, so what is another experience we start to see doing cases in forensics is usually the cases in the laboratory is working as isolated cases. This means if I catch one criminal guy, I process his evidence, another guy, his evidence, and everything is separated. The interesting stuff is when we start to play with Maltego. It's an open source intelligence tool, and it's free, it's open source, and as many others. we start to find something very interesting, and is the relationships. All the relationships between the cases, and then use the data mining in cases is really, really extremely useful. This is a good recommendation I do. This is another example of tools for recovery. You can see here, this is actually the motherboard of a SSD disk. You need to remove one by one and put it here. And please, for those that is working, doing, or learning decapsulation, that is the process of remove, for example, if I have a chip and it's a broken leg, I need to take the chip and do like some kind of microsurgery to take directly the information from there for this. I need to use special chemicals for that, even the information you can find on Google. The problem of this is extremely dangerous chemicals. I have some friends that stay 2 or even 3 days in the hospital doing this in the bathroom of the house because they are trying to learn, because you need a close space, you need something like that. And then please, if you're going to do that, please don't do it in the bathroom. It's really not a good idea, or a very close space. And please read the instructions of the chemicals. The good news is you can recover, no matter if the chip is broken. The good news is you can recover. The bad news is you can die in the process. But it's not a problem for some people. This is actually a hard drive. The heads is something I explained before. Then really, it's a lot of myths about the hard drives, about hard drive recovery, that the hard drive is confined space, that is a vacuum inside. That is not true. Actually, it's a lot of air inside the hard drive. And then the good news is you can recover the hard drives. The bad news is you need to study a lot to do that. Something, for example, if one drive is inside the water, no matter if salty or sweet water, you can recover. Even you can find the chemicals to clean the surface. Even if it's in fire, the hard drive, you can do the recovery. I share this for you because some people believe that it's not possible to recover the evidence, especially physical evidence or broken physical evidence. So this is a good news to research and to work for. As I explained, the system area work through ATA commands. Actually, the ATA commands is an open standard that you can see in T13.org. All these is the standards and the standard protocol to work or talk with a hard drive directly, right? So you can flash, and this interesting stuff. You can even hide information in the flash room of the hard drives. Then it's an interesting thing to do. The security raise command is a very, very well-known command for the hard drive, especially to fill with zeros the surface of the hard drive. This is a factory process to certify that the surface is okay. The problem is some of the bad guys is using this process to override the full hard drive and do it unrecoverable. Then this is another challenge. This is just one example of the T13. Another recommendation, as I explained before, is the open source intelligence. It's an extremely useful tool and real useful tool for forensic laboratories or for any kind of investigation. If you saw right now, even many governments is working doing intelligence through these kind of tools, right? Maltego is a really useful tool that I recommend. It's open source. Everybody can download from the website of the company. It's nice South African people, right? Of course, if you need more tools for the laboratory, start to research things like the injection of code inside the SWF. Of course, IDAPRO we love IDAPRO. It's the best reverse engineering tool. I think so, right? And of course, I saw some people from Cortland here in somewhere. Then Cortland is a very good resource to learn deeply or to get information about deep stuff. Okay? So finally, my conclusions is please do teamwork in your forensic team. Do research beyond the standard channels. My goal today, as I explained in the beginning, is just put the seed in the people that want to work hardly or research more in the forensic field, right? It's a lot of tools. If anybody just want to talk with me after the conference, it's my pleasure to share my knowledge. I'm not collecting. Today is free. So go beyond the standard channels. Work reverse engineering in the forensic laboratory is really, really and extremely useful right now, right? VMware and physical isolation of the machines to work, to put the evidence in live evidence, right? Avoiding the self-destruction techniques, as I explained before, the gaussers, physical degaussers that can destroy the drive, right? Or even software that can activate the certification factory that start to override with zero the hard drive. Why I explain that? Because one of the rules of forensics is if the computer is on, don't switch off. Yes, this is true, but not if the computer starts to do the self-destruction of the, or overwriting of the information, right? And then this is something to keep in mind, right? Hardware hacking, as I showed before, is a lot of techniques, right? A lot of hardware tricks for this kind of stuff. I will try to show something that maybe. In 1 minute. No, I don't have it here. Just one trick that I want to share with you, just to close. In 1 minute. I just want to show you. Yes, this is a nice example of hardware hacking for extreme cases. This is actually a USB hard drive, right? You can see the interface here. The problem is, if I'm going to access the factory level of such hard drive, I can do through the USB because the USB controller can send the attack commands to the hard drive. So what I need to do? The good thing of China, especially the Saudi, you can find the diagrams of almost every electronic in the planet. And then you can find the schematics of this board, and you can plug and solder directly to the motherboard of the drive. This kind of thing. This is actually a SATA connector, and when I do that, I have direct access to the factory level in the hard drive. This is one of the techniques, it's advanced techniques for forensics. The good point is that it's possible. Because some of the cases in the laboratories, when I receive information, is okay. I have USB, what I can do, I can connect, I can access the factory level, okay? Always exists a way, right? This is used to do the closure there. Okay? Then, of course, legal technical integration to see what I can do if I need to do a chain of custody. Try to work with the committees, try to work with the academics. The hacker community have an amazing resource of information to share with the people, and absolutely sure in the future will be more integration in the society, and absolutely sure about that. The challenge that is going on during the next year is going to be more and more bigger. Going to see in the news. And then unification, the working, the research together is very, very important for the well of everybody, right? Then, finally, welcome ideas, research of joint efforts. And if anybody have a question, thank you.